On the Spot, the National Film Board's up-to-the-minute report on what's going on somewhere in Canada. This week and every week, NFB camera crews are on the spot where things are happening, recording the varied and colorful life of Canadians. Tonight, we invite you to join a Film Board crew on another location.
6 yards of silk at 75 cents a yard?
That's right. Only 75 cents a yard, and it's pure silk. We call it our dressmaker's delight. Are you interested?
Why, of course I'm interested. Sounds almost too good to be true.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. This is Fred Davis speaking to you from the Better Business Bureau in Montreal. I wonder how many of us at one time or another have been caught or hooked by some fine-sounding scheme. Anything from phony securities to phony beggars who drive Cadillacs on the side. The big difficulty in detecting such exploitation is that they all sound so legitimate. Now take that last offer, for example. 6 yards of pure silk at 75 cents a yard. That's a real bargain. But let's take a closer look. Yes, Madame does get her 6 yards of silk, all right. Silk ribbon. In today's on-the-spot story, we hope to acquaint you with some of the commercial rackets and advertising tricks that are currently in use. To do this, we're visiting a rather unusual agency, the Better Business Bureau.
Thanks, Mr. Johnston. Come in a day or so, eh?
Thank you.
Its methods are effective and direct. It keeps a record of all those persons known to operate confidence schemes, and it can spot their methods, such as misleading advertising, for example, just as soon as it appears. The aim of the Bureau is to maintain public confidence in bona fide businesses and advertising, and it does this through the exposure of these unethical practices. Mr. Root, are there many rackets operating in the business world today?
Oh, well, Fred, we consider a racket something outside the law to be dealt with by law enforcement agencies. Our own concern is with shady practices just within the law. That's the kind that give the rest of business a black eye, to say nothing of misleading the public at the same time.
And is there much of this sort of thing going on?
Well, according to our belief, 96% of established business has honest intent and will try to do right by customers. It's that small minority that keeps our hands full.
I see. Well, since I've been here at the Better Business Bureau, I've heard of many of these shady practices. And so the members of the Bureau, their staff, have agreed to reenact some of these situations for you in the hopes that you'll recognize them in case it should ever happen to you. Perhaps the greatest and gentlest victim of all gimmicks, confidence games, shady practices, etc., is the average housewife. Take Mrs. Wilson here, for instance. This morning, she read a startling offer in the newspaper. A name-brand vacuum cleaner, reconditioned, at only $21.99. Demonstrations guaranteed. Well, it sounded too good to be true. And here comes Honest Harry, the people's friend, the salesman with your best interests at heart. And sure enough, he's brought along that name-brand reconditioned vacuum cleaner. And he's going to show you how effectively it will pick up scraps of paper which he'll scatter on your living room rug. Well, what do you know? It doesn't work. But he has your interest so much at heart that after several purposely unsuccessful attempts at demonstrating the machine, he breaks down. Loyalty to the company is all very well, he tells you, but he likes you. Confidentially, he says, between you and me, lady, this little item isn't all it's cracked up to be. Now, if you really want a bargain, this special unknown cleaner is a real find. As a salesman, he knows. Of course, it costs more, about $50, but after all, look at the value you're getting. The trick behind this gimmick is that he's tampered with the original machine and never intended to sell it to you in the first place. The $50 item, on the other hand, is probably a cheap imitation, which is difficult to sell on the open market. That little gimmick is called bait advertising, and it's very damaging to public confidence. Mr. Root, what do you do about that sort of thing?
Well, first, Fred, we go directly to the advertiser himself, and we'll try to persuade him to modify his advertising by removing the bait angle. Now, if he gets stubborn and won't cooperate, we then warn the public for one thing, and as a last resort, we can and do go to the newspapers or the radio stations and ask them to deny him the use of their facilities, and that usually does it.
Another very common dodge concerns photographs. Now, there are a number of legitimate photographic firms who solicit from door to door, but beware of this type of character.
Well, Mrs. Wilson, this is certainly very nice of you. As you know, I represent the...
He tells you he's a representative of a photographic firm. Such beautiful children you have, he says. What a pity not to capture this one moment in their life on film. Motherly pride rises to the fore, especially when he shows you those really beautiful baby photos, and so reasonable, too. Of course, you'll feel a little less proud when the pictures arrive at double the price because of incidentals he didn't mention. And there's the poor quality, too. Nothing at all like the original samples. The only answer to that one is to establish beforehand the final price of the transaction. Or if you're still in doubt, ask the salesman for some names of other satisfied customers in your neighborhood, people that you know. Just in case you think that only men can ring your doorbell with a slick deal, here's one that's usually operated by a woman, the traveling hair wave agent. She's usually a charming, smartly dressed woman. She drops in just when you're trying to reconcile looking your best for that forthcoming party with the fact that your husband is making an economy drive, especially on hairdos. And isn't this wonderful? Her beauty shop is seeking to advertise by offering free hairdos. Besides, the saleswoman thinks she's so attractive, a natural in terms of publicity. So finally, she bites. But what happens when she reaches the hairdressers with that free coupon?
I'm sorry, madam. This coupon only covers a finger wave.
Hairdressing, she is told, is a costly business. Surely she doesn't expect to get all of these services for free. The permanent and haircut will cost an extra $7. The intention here is to make the woman feel cheap, that she can't afford a beauty treatment. So in many cases, pride takes over and the pocketbook opens up. But if you're a perceptive person like Mrs. Wilson here, you'll recognize this for what it is, bait to draw in business. You'll feel indignant at having been taken, and you'll walk out. Of course, the dishonest operator can afford to miss out on the odd one. So much for dodges and baits that fall within the law. Here's one that's definitely illegal. It's called the COD racket. You're sitting in the living room relaxing, probably because you've just managed to get rid of that last salesman. There's a knock at the door. Oh, no. What's this? Another bill of goods? If that's another fast-talking salesman, I'll sure give him a piece of my mind. Oh, no, madam. Just a messenger delivering a COD parcel to your neighbor. But she isn't around. Would you mind paying for it? She'll pay you back later. The neighbor, of course, never ordered anything, and that package just contains some old newspapers. Well, there's a twist to the old saying, help thy neighbor. It isn't always wise. What should you do in a case like this, Mr. Root?
Well, in a case like this, that's an outright fraud, and as such should be reported to the police immediately. On our part, we do the best we can to warn the public and give it all the publicity we can, and that's about all we can do.
Well, now, just in case any of you men are sitting back and smirking at the little woman's gullibility, let me point out that the indomitable male can be taken in just as easily.
Mr. Williams, perhaps you don't realize the prestige you have in this business.
It all sounds so plausible and flattering. Every important executive should have a captain of industry portrait taken for the newspapers, you know. In fact, why not subscribe to this biographical yearbook, or mug books, as the con men call them? A subscription, a costly one, guarantees a biography and a picture. Now, mind you, there's no mention made of the extras, engraving charges, etc., or the fact that the total circulation of the book is limited to the number of suckers Dapper Dan has been able to rope in. Human nature being what it is, there are very few methods of combating this sort of come-on. Another field in which unethical practices are sometimes found is the used car business. Now, you've probably heard of many of them in jokes and cartoons. Here's a recent angle called bushing. And it starts off with the victim finding a little card under his windshield wiper. It's an ordinary business card bearing the name of some dealer. It says, Will you take $1,500 for this car on an exchange basis? Well, you look over the old sweetheart, and you decide that no matter how much you like her, $1,500 is a mighty good price. In fact, it's nothing short of miraculous that anyone should be so generous as to offer you that much. It's miraculous until you put in an appearance at the dealer's.
Yes, Mr. Henderson, as I see it, $1,500 is a fair price for your car.
It all seems so straight and above board. As a matter of fact, this man is offering you such a price that you're getting to think of him as your best friend. Here you are getting all that money and a chance at that newer model you've been dreaming about. One little detail, however, a mere formality. He has to check the sale with the big boss. You know how big bosses are.
What? $1,500? You think I made a money? Well, I promised him. $1,100, the most I'll pay, not a cent more.
Isn't it odd? He emerges a few minutes later, your friend, with a hangdog expression. He's made a big mistake. The boss, the impartial boss, says the car's only worth $1,100. Oh, but he tried. Yes, sir. He nearly lost his job in the process, but your best friend tried. Now, about that newer model.
1954. I think you'd like it very much.
And so by using a recognized business practice under false pretenses, some salesmen jeopardize the standing of reputable car dealers. Although taken in by this method, it's amazing how many unwary customers lower their pride and make a deal. I suppose that's why you use the term confidence man, is it?
Yes, every confidence man knows that he must have or give his operation a semblance of respectability. And remember, too, Fred, that he's always aided by the fact that most people do have a trace of larceny in their makeup, which makes them vulnerable. They still think that they can get something for nothing.
That explains why so many of these harebrained schemes have been successful in the public, I guess.
Yes, the list is just about endless. Let's think of some. There's the old still chain letters. There are hair restorers and security swindles, fake antiques, and even the old Spanish prisoner racket.
Well, what is this Spanish prisoner business? I've never heard of that.
Well, this is probably the oldest international swindle known. It originated in Spain, and now it operates out of Mexico. You receive intriguing letters from somebody who claims he's to be imprisoned in a Mexican jail, and he offers you part of a huge fortune if you'll give him some money to get him out.
You mean to say people actually go for that line?
Well, it's still going strong after 200 years.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Root, and I certainly wish you continued success in your Bureau's efforts to combat these rackets and other unethical business practices. And we hope that you have learned from all this that there's wisdom behind the Better Business Bureau's slogan, before you invest, investigate. Because as long as people are people, there'll always be promoters around, and they'll follow you as long as you live.
Yes, madam. I know I'm calling it a sad time, but before your husband passed away...
As a matter of fact, even when you're dead and gone, one of them will probably add insult to injury by delivering an expensive Bible to your widow, one supposedly ordered by yourself. Obviously, the bereaved person is in no condition to be checking on a story of this kind. Now, this is Fred Davis speaking to you from the offices of the Better Business Bureau in Montreal. Join us again next week when the National Film Board will bring you another on-the-spot Canadian story.